Good afternoon, everyone, and my name is Atenekulu Watobi. Welcome to Zero Team. In today's class, I will be discussing about core HTML concepts. And in core HTML concepts, we'll be going through this series of topics: HTML schematics, HTML file paths, HTML responsive, HTML symbols, HTML emojis, and final but not the least, HTML entities. But before I continue, I would also like to take us back to revision about what HTML is. I know we had a class on how HTML works and what HTML is. So before I just talk about HTML, I would like to use an example. We have HTML, we have CSS and JavaScript. So let's just take HTML like a body and CSS as the clothes that humans wear. That fits into the body. Then JavaScript as what makes you move your body, like how you can take your hand up, you can walk, you could also move your head, turn it right, left. So take that as the JavaScript part. So take it this way. Also, I want to think about it this HTML in this format. Without the body, the clothes is actually useless. The function of clothes is to fit into the body, to be worn on body. Clothes are not just for decoration. Well, some clothes are for decoration, but in normal sense, every cloth is to be worn. Then now, there cannot be movement without a body. Yes, things move, but everything that is even moving still also is a body. So just take HTML in that way. Without kind of HTML, a lot of front end things might not work. Even to connect to JavaScript, there are little elements that are used in HTML that's being used on the back end. So without wasting more time, so let me and just this to do this shortcut, use Shift I on your code. So which brings about this, but so I'll not be going into a lot of details about this. So the next, the first topic we'll be talking about is the HTML schematics. So let's put it this way. First, the schematic. What schematic actually means? Schematics are elements. Um, these are elements with a meaning. So we have schematic and we have non-schematic elements. So elements with a meaning is called schematic elements. So for example, let me give an example of non-schematic elements. Div is actually a non-schematic. A couple of on. Div is a non-schematic element. If I hover on it, I would say okay, div element has no special meaning at all. So it does not have any special meaning. Let's see a p tag. A p tag represents a paragraph. So then we have span as example of non-schematic element also. So this one too does not have anything on its own. Like it can be useful when used together with global attributes, blah, 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 but this one does not have any special meaning. It does not have any meaning at all. So now the one we're actually discussing today are schematic elements. A schematic element are what has meaning, elements with a meaning. So let me give an example of schematic element. Article is an example of schematic element. And what article is being used for is majorly for blog articles, if you're writing magazines, if you're actually writing anything, post, that even a section to post comments and all. So article contains content. So even though I'm now over on this would actually tell me an article element represents a complete or self-contained composition in document, page, application, or site, and that is a principle independently. This is actually plenty, but you can see also they actually said it could be used. It could be a forum post, a magazine or newspaper article, a blog entry, user submitted content, and interactive widgets or gadgets. So in a real sense, article just, even though I save this, I won't see anything on my page. I won't see anything. But in the real sense, what article does is just to hold elements, to hold content, to hold posts. So another schematic element I will be discussing is form. So in form, the previous class, one of the classes, you would actually have gone through form, and So I'll not be going details about how form is being used or what form is. I'm just really be talking about the schematic or types of schematic examples of schematic elements. That's elements with meaning. So if I click over on form, you see that a form actually represents a collection of form associated elements, some of which can represent editable values that can be submitted to a server for processing. So that's where the input part comes in. Um, the input part comes in to get. So inputs also. These are actually elements that represent the type data field, usually from control to allow the user to edit the data. So I believe with this field, this is you able to understand schematic elements, what they actually mean. The elements with meaning. And I'll tell you some things that some people actually do that I've seen. This is not a schematic element. For example, you just want to maybe you make a mistake or you are trying to write something that you probably make a mistake. Then let's say let me just remove this, then you try to save. Yes, you have something, but these are not elements. As I can see, I'm hovering on it. It does not have any meaning. Although yes, if I type in something inside this, it will actually print out. I'll see whatever I type is working like a p tag. But all these are wrong ways, like just calling any tag to wrap your data. Always ensure you are use schematic elements with meanings to actually wrap your data. More examples of schematic elements. We have table. Table is also a good example of schematic element. Then we also have, let me just write them down here. Table. We also have forms. Oh, sorry, form. We also have footer. The footer is also an example of schematic element because you are wrapping something around this. Then we also have header. So whatever has meaning are schematic elements. We also have something main. Main is also a schematic element. If I hover on it, you see what main means. A main element represents that the main content of a body or a document or application. So we also have one other schematic element that is very very important. And majorly they use it with main, which is section. So it's always advisable whenever you are breaking your content in a site, always break them into sections. Always break them into sections. And when I mean break them into sections, for example, you are building a header or you are building an arrow section. Always ensure that you section them. This is always very easy so that you could go back to it and you probably could add style. You could if you are grouping, you group them together so that you could change it easily traceable. So you can see what they wrote about section. Section element represents a generic section of a document application. A section in this context is a dramatic grouping of content. Yeah, so each section should be identified typically by including the head and child or section. So what this actually means basically is in sections you have to have your other, what is it called, what the group elements you want to use, be it h1, be it a div, be it a p tag. Then while I still discuss this schematic element, there's one other thing that I would like to discuss, which is not a good way of coding, which I know beginners always fall back to. Try not to put the hierarchies in coding. So hierarchy actually starts from you have a div, then you have your h tags, probably be it h1. Then you can also be H2, H3, H4, H5 to H6. We have H1 to H6. You should have gotten that from your previous classes. Then you have a P. Then you can also still have a span. One of the mistakes I see developer do, the newbie do is don't try, like I say, can see from the hierarchy as I put it. Don't try to replace one for another in the sense that don't try to put a div inside the span. Yes, HTML will not throw up an error when you do something like this. It won't throw up an error. HTML will not throw up that, oh, there's an error, why you actually did something very bad, which is putting a p tag into a div. HTML won't show you that error. It will write it that it's correct. But when you move further and you start getting those kind of little errors, when you move further to React. So don't you see the React has a linked error notification that shows you if you have some few errors. Not sure on the side three debugging and part that you should not try to put a child element over a parent one. Okay, good. So that's that on schematic element. So let me just make a little example of using a schematic element. And one of the examples I would like to use is, let me just say section. So like I said, when you can have multiple sections on a page, you can have multiple sections on the page and you would see that difference. So having a section, I can still have a div. Then I can now say, let's say, I want to have an h1 here. Then the h1 I want to say Zuri team. Yeah, then in my day I want to have a p tag. Then I can just say this is core HTML concepts. So let me just pick this. Let me just copy from here again. Yeah, I'll change the text, although you would not see any real change. This is called HTML concept 2. So let me just save and refresh. So you can see, although no real change, is when you want to start that you start saying, okay, you start understanding why it's good to always just section to section whatever you are doing. But when I say section, I don't mean just anytime you need your div, you section that part. When you're sectioning something, for example, you want to section your header, you have an header you want to style. So that's when you should actually like style things like that. Or instead of section, if it's be it an article, it can actually be article. It could be article. All this would not, you would not see any change on the site, even though you won't see any change. So this is saved. You won't visually see any change. Majorly schematic element helps you just group and have proper coding way. Nothing different. It does not give you a different way of coding. Not some of them form as a must way. Like it gives you, like, you have to use it in when you're using an input and you need to submit that input. So you have to wrap it in a form. Likewise, table, when you are creating table, which you would see in one of the videos that's still this week, you would see videos on forms and table grouped together. So tables too is not just not giving you are seeing result from table. So some of them just give meaning, but they don't show anything. They don't have a lot of functions, while some of them have functions. For example, form always has an action in them. Form, you will always see it with an action. That's what action you want to perform. What do you want it to do? Is it to submit? What are you what? And also it has a method in it. In the video form and table, you'll see more about it. Then one of which that I would also want to that I said is actually table. So table to always have elements in it. So table elements represent data in one or dimension form of table. So table is also still always like this, which always have the TD, um, TV, TD, TH in it. Yes, so that's that. So now another one that I know that is good to know is nav. Nav. So that's when you're creating your nav, there is also a nav navigation element. So nav element represents a section of a page that links to other pages. So this is where you have your other not schematic element, the A, where you could put your linking of pages. In the basic HTML class, you should be seeing more of this linking, and also in one of the live classes I'll be giving, I will discuss more on this too. No, let me just use it's always good to also section your nav. That's if you are trying to create a nav bar, it's always very good to house them your a tags in the nav. It's very helpful, majorly when you want to style them instead of using a div. So like the major purpose of schematic is so you just don't overuse div. Yes, div is good to use, but when you use proper schematic, it makes you have a readable code and a usable code, and anybody coming to your code could understand easily that, oh, this section is housing, this is where it stops, instead of you trying to drag divs and divs, you just tracing divs up and down. Yeah. So our next class will be discussing on this next class I'll be discussing on file paths. File paths. So first, I would want to say what is actually file paths. When you are trying to describe a file path, that's you trying to, let me try to get a good English to use to be readable. For example, in an house, the location of the room. If you need to like send somebody to bring something from the room, you cannot just say, go and give me, let me say, clothes. My clothes is in the room. I cannot just say, go and bring my clothes. Aside, you know that it's my room that my clothes are. That's where you know that you have to go to the room and pick my clothes for me. So also take file part. When I discuss something like file part, is actually when you need to call an element, majorly images, even CSS or whatever thing and whatever structure that's file that you need to call on a particular file on a particular file. Yeah, so still file. So you have to find a way to locate them. So for example, let me just go to my system and look and just bring out a random file, and I'll show you different ways of calling a file path. So let me say, okay, let me use this screenshot as an example, and I'll just drop it here. I drag and drop. So this is the image. I'll show you different ways of calling a file. So for example, if I need to call this particular file, this is actually called .html, and if I need to call this file, this image file, let me rename this and give it a proper name that I can call. Let me just say image. If I need to call this file in this part, you should know that when you need to use an image in the beginning of that is basic HTML, you should have had something called image. So calling an image in HTML, you need to call it from the file. You need to locate where it is. You need to know where the what you are looking for, the folder it is located. So for this image, it's actually located in the core HTML. So let me just say, if I call image dot, you can see even while typing yesterday, you understood that this is where it is. So if I save and I come back here and I refresh, I would see it. So this is how you call an image that is in the same file, in the same folder content. Let me now show you another thing that occurs. Let me have a image folder. Having an image folder, and I come here and I do image slash image.jpg. If I save this does not exist. You would see it can't locate it. Reason being that looking at this is actually trying to say there is an image in image folder which does not exist. We can see clicking on it is telling me an error code that this part does not exist. So one of the mistakes that developers newbie does is they the understanding of how to locate their file always an issue. So one of the best way you can actually do to know where your file path is, you can also do this: copy file path, just try to find a way to paste it. So you can see it's under core HTML, then image.jpg. So you can also, this is major thing you need aside that's the core HTML file. So this is the path. You can already see that this is image.html. So if I need to make this thing work, all I just need to do is to drag the image and paste here. So if I move this, Now it's going to tell me that this is actually, now I'm saying go to image folder, then look for image.png. So if I save this, you will see this should readily work. You can see it brought it. So to locate an image, you need to know where it is located and how you can actually locate it. So if I do this, and know this also slash image, you can see this is actually when if I put this slash, I'm trying to locate. Maybe if you don't know where it is, it's always advisable most times. If you don't know where your folder is, always try to start with a slash. The slash should now be able to help you to navigate where what you are looking for is. So if I should save this, I can have the image here. So what I would want to show again is, let me do a nested just to show how you can trace your file path again. Let me just do picture here, and I'll drag this into the side, move. So let me just remove this. So the best way to, like I said, the best way to locate your file path. Now you already know that this thing is actually inside image, then picture, then you have this. So if I should do just slash, it will tell me where is it located, picture. What is under picture? What is under image? Picture. Then I click on it to show me the path. I just click on enter, which should actually show me the correct path. What I'm looking for is art, instead of me looking for it everywhere or just trying to test and run and all. But with this, you'll be able to understand um, how to locate a file. So this backslash is always very useful when you need to locate your file. Be it an image, it could also be CSS. It could be CSS. If, for example, let me create a new file. Let me just say style.css, and I need to like locate where it is, which I know is under style. So if I go to my HTML and let me just say link. Let me do it at this link, then just slash it to tell me it's under image. Yes, I know that I saved it under pictures also. Yes, then wait, what am I looking for? Style.css. So this slash is always very good to locate your image. Then, being after knowing this, there are some times that if you want to locate your image, let's say you have a very long route of image and you don't even know where it is. There's another there's another logic that you can use, which is, let's say this is two parts, double parts. So if I do dot dot, if I do that's let me pick this out. Let me take this into this. Let me just create a new part for this. Let me say let me just call it what name should I give it? Let me just give it home. Then I drop this into this. Then this image, I move it outside to the root part. Now if I need to locate this image and this my index is here, all I just need to do is dot slash. So let me see this. Yeah, so all I just need to do is dot dot, which means dot go outside. So one dot is actually saying is inside the same root, but dot dot is now saying move from the first one, go outside the next one, that is which is like the home. So I'm taking like doing like backspace. It's more like saying backspace instead of me going to just go and call the root. So if I need to call an image that is on the next rise, a root that is not on this, or it does not have a path, I just do this dot dot slash whatever thing I need to call. So if I save this, and I go to this my okay, could not get HTML file, and that's because the part has changed. This part has changed. So if I should do this, yeah, so I have my image. So because of the home part that changed. So parts is always very, very, very important. And whenever you are structuring your code, your HTML, your file, you need to try to get a part that could be easily referenced. Don't just create any folders the way you like. Ensure that when you are creating your folder, structure them accordingly. For example, you can have it's always advisable to have your asset folder. Your asset folder is expected your asset folder is expected to house your images, that you can have an image folder there, then also your CSS folders. That's what your assets, and JavaScript also. That's what is expected to house. So that's all on file part. Then another key part is about HTML responsive. Under HTML responsive,